Yeah, so I've spent a good amount of time. I don't even remember how long it was. It kind of it kind of blurred together, and it was kind of piecemeal here and there. The time that I spent working on this video, I would say it was probably around maybe a week in terms of time span. But definitely not like 24/7 or something like that. But yeah, this was my first AIMV project. I do have some video editing experience before I made this, but in terms of working with Suno and Grok, Imagine, it was the first time that I actually sat down and did anything specifically other than messing around with it for an actual serious thing. Before I get any further into explaining anything with like my thought process or references or any other information, I guess now is your last chance before we get into, spoiler territory when it comes to those references, the meanings, interpretation of the lyrics or the visuals. It seemed like from the poll there weren't too many people that were concerned with that, but yeah, if you already watched the video and you assumed the song was about radical leftists being deranged NPCs that are brainwashed into the communist propaganda, and we need to stand up and fight against their bullshit. Well, you were correct because I would kind of hope that was the prominent message of the video. But beyond that, if you happen to be here and you haven't seen the video, you should probably watch it first to have the proper context. I'm going to be pausing very frequently, or probably on almost every clip that shows up. So I would say come back after watching it to fill in any blanks. If you haven't seen the video and you have no idea why you're here, well, may the algorithm gods have mercy on your soul. Let's start going through each segment of the video, and I'll explain each part in some depth. I probably won't go too deep on the original character stuff. They're probably going to appear in future videos, and to be honest, not all of the background is even really fleshed out. But I can at least introduce them. Okay, so right off the bat, we have the chip eating lad. I was actually kind of surprised that some people didn't recognize him, but it's supposed to be the streamer CaseOh, the big man himself. I chose to use him because it was fitting to have a guy that's constantly memed on for being fat. He's sitting in the opening in front of a TV, stuffing his face with Doritos. This is actually something I had planned on using really early on when working on this project. As for the elephant in the room, I know he isn't openly political, and his stream has rules against politics. This actually kind of works in my favor in some ways because the character meant to be receiving the message of the video is not supposed to be political. It's supposed to be a normal guy, like a normie, if you will. So don't misconstrue that I want to force politics or make him pick a side or anything like that. It's I don't care what his actual stance of politics are. He's just supposed to be there kind of as like oh, it's that guy. Like I suppose maybe an unfortunate victim of a different character's shenanigans. The audio that plays on the TV, I actually took it from a different video that was just a mega compilation of a bunch of like TikTok brain rot memes that were all playing like simultaneously. And then I layered in a segment of my own voice saying what I would argue is probably one of the worst memes ever created. If you listen very closely, you'll kind of be able to hear it, but you know. Um, Actually, all of the distorted audio in the video, including when the mask shows up on the TV screen, as well as the red messages at the end of the video, are just me talking, and I just heavily edited the audio. It wasn't made with AI. Yeah, that voice. Um, the close up of the white mask on the TV screen. Very early, you're already being introduced to a small part of my original story universe. Rictus is the name of a cult-like group that is led by She Who Must Grin, who is prominently mentioned throughout the video. I'll get into her details a little bit more thoroughly as she appears. Probably the most information will be the later scene when she actually, you can see her face and stuff. Rictus is just the Latin word for grin or laughter, which should be kind of an obvious pattern. So now the message begins, and you're brought into one of the central themes of the video, the dark, spooky woods. I'm intentionally not going to talk much about this just yet, but keep it in the back of your mind. This is the titular character, She Who Must Grin, or She Who Grins, or whatever um, the nickname ends up being. It is just a nickname, though. This is also the character that is in the thumbnail art. Probably the most appearances of any particular character in the video, I think. I'm pretty sure. There's a specific piece of information that I need to mention ahead of time, kind of as a setup for later. My universe has some similarities to Taoism's idea of myriad gods, if you are aware of that. If not, I guess you can look it up. There's a pecking order based on worshiper counts, and some of the higher ranked ones are referred to as Dea, who's basically like goddess. She Who Must Grin was one of them. In early concepts and drafts of my story, this is one of the first characters that I designed, although her design has changed pretty drastically over time. She is Elle, spelled out ELLE, known as the Dimensional Witch, part of the central cast of characters. There are quite a few various races of characters in the canon. She is an extremely important and more unusual and uncommon one known as the Aetherius. I forgot to mention too. Um, I believe it was Gaming Syndicate mentioned the blindfold, or yeah, reminded him of Nier Automata. I'll have you know, not that this matters much, but my character designs have been around for a very long time, kind of on paper, conceptually in my head, and I had blindfolds before Nier Automata, but whatever. Not like I created blindfolds. Alright, I think most people understood this one. It's pretty literal. But the brainwashed NPCs behave like large language models. On first impression, they feel human, although with how they tend to portray themselves, that's highly debatable. But internally, there's no breaking past their programming. You cannot hold meaningful conversation or debate with them, and they will never approach any conversation with the possibility of their minds being changed. It's a hopeless endeavor. The Oblivion NPC meme has been around for quite a long time, but I saw more recently people comparing it to LLMs, and it honestly felt even more fitting. Also, not much to be said with this. Shot. It's self-explanatory. For anyone that may not be aware somehow, Blue Sky is a Twitter competitor that came around a bit more recently and immediately became a lefty safe space, which also coincidentally had tons of child predators appear on it. Funny how that works. The lunatic asylum part is partly in reference to Trump supposedly pushing some legislation to bring back asylums, which, as much as it will negatively impact our tax dollars, I really hope will become reality because we seriously need them again with all these whack jobs running around. Lastly, the 9 hells part of the lyrics is Dante's Inferno, 9 circles of hell, just in case you didn't catch that or are not aware. Okay. This one is going to be a little lengthier of an explanation, but this is one of the parts that I didn't really anticipate people catching or understanding. It's kind of obscure. The lyrics are very key here for these two particular scenes, since they're a pair. They're at a 3 or 4, and we're at 7. This directly refers to the developmental levels of consciousness and aspects of psychology. If I could put it extremely simply, it's a tiered scale of how well you can comprehend your own needs and desires and behaviors in correlation with others around you and the rest of society. I don't think that explanation does it much justice and may not even be fully accurate. I didn't study psychology myself, to be fair. It's a pretty advanced and abstract concept, and it would take an entire video to attempt to explain it alone. And there are already far better out there to do the explaining. I highly recommend watching Homath's videos on the subject. This man's is very excellent at talking about this stuff, although his content tends to kind of focus more on the dating scene specifically. But he does have videos talking about the levels idea. I know Leaflit watched to some of his videos, but she only kind of covered some of the more popular ones. But the levels chart, which I actually have the older one here, although I would probably just look at the middle bit that he simplified, is where the reference stems from. 3 and 4, 7. This whole concept, when you understand even partially what this kind of means, it really opens your eyes to explain all of the stupid things that are going on in the world. It lines up with so many things, it's really crazy. But yes, definitely highly recommend watch his videos about it, because I cannot do any justice to explain compared to him. He's like the magician of explaining that kind of stuff. But yes, that's what it's referring to, is developmental levels. Immediately followed up with a bunch of woke protesters with the hypocritical messaging on the protest signs. We've been seeing this a lot. You know it very well. Come on, YouTube. There's this clip with the skeleton hand. Yeah, the guy's supposed to resemble Tim Walz, although you could really put any Democratic politician in his place. He is receiving a vote for Democrat from a dead person. If you didn't know that they pad the polls with dead people and illegals, and that's why they want their illegals so badly, well, now you know. And then there was these two, which were pretty literal as well. Just some extra references in the lyrics. This was in general referring to how the left can't meme, as the saying goes. Their attempts are always extremely long-winded and full of unnecessary amounts of text, the antithesis of succinct. Assuming they aren't just directly stealing our memes and just lazily changing the text in ways that just often don't make sense, their memes are born of pure hatred, unbridled rage. Have too much text, bursting at seams, only to fall extremely short of ours. The Pepe scene has some nods to the classic right-wing dog whistles that the left and the ADL latched onto. The bane of the left, the MAGA hat, the Let's Go Brandon phrase, the OK hand, even Pepe himself. And I chucked an AR-15 in for the gun control nut jobs, just for good measure. This is an OC character. Oh, that's redundant to say. Oh, no, OC. I can introduce another race from my story. There's an array of beings that are known as the Calyx. They are humanoids that are born from inanimate objects or physical concepts in our world. This girl in particular is made from darkness itself. Her name is Ren. She's making a nice little cameo appearance trying to take a nap. You'll probably be seeing more appearances from Calyx in the future videos, whenever I make those. She's supposed to have shadow flowing off of her, like her tail is made of shadow. The arms and legs are covered in it. It was honestly one of the scenes that I struggled with Grok Imagine, because it looks kind of like fur. It's not supposed to be. Also, I cannot express the amount of times that I had to keep trying generations for this particular scene, because Grok really wanted to just do weird things with the tree branch, or her posture on the tree branch. Alright, then we cut to Rin. I already kind of went into some depth in a comment I made on the YouTube video side of things, but I'll kind of just say the same sort of thing and talk about her. She's one of the 22 Veurnol that they each represent the major arcana from tarot. Her full name, which I didn't mention on the comment, is Zostarinko, but it's easier just to say Rin. She's a well-meaning girl with a penchant for science, interpret that as explosives, and writing fan fiction. For anyone familiar with tarot, she is number 14, which is Temperance, the major arcana that generally revolves around balance and moderation. In alchemical relations, it's also about mixing and diluting elements, often in magical or downright impossible manners. She appears here because, while we are long past trying to negotiate and get along with the psychos on the radical left, there's still the unlikely and naive possibility of coexistence. even though we've time and again failed to do so. Out of the infinite potential future world lines, she represents that particular one, as unlikely as it might be. Also, the AI messed up in this generation. He's supposed to have red and blue eyes, a heterochromia, like the later scene. But again, AI inconsistency is... Unless you have base images for everything that it can base on, and it's like, yeah, have fun with that. Now there's those series of scenes. I'm sure a lot of people had in various interpretations of what that's supposed to mean. Symbolism for cancel culture or something like that. It's intentional that you interpret it that way, but I'll let you in on a little secret. It's just antagonist story shenanigans. Don't worry about it. Everything is fine. The Nox surely aren't coming to destroy the world or anything. This is Io. She is another Dea. Although, for specific reasons, she isn't very known or worshipped much. I won't expand on her. We gotta keep some of the characters secret for future video projects. Swinging back to the leftist political crap and away from OC stuff, this is a nod to all the lovely game companies that have been infected and infiltrated by the woke ideology trying to pander to the LGBT, who are only interested in screeching about representation, not actually buying the product. The mythical modern audience. In fact, I brought a meme with me for this. Change the thing. Well, now the audience doesn't want the thing. Oh, you that screamed about changing the thing. Do you want the thing? I never had any real interest in it. Yeah. Those guys. The colors of the boxes are also intentionally pastel red, blue, white, and for that extra spicy trans flag coloration that they adore so much. This is pretty self-explanatory, specifically censorship of the female characters, making outfits less revealing, turning panties into spats or safety shorts, all under an excuse of protecting children. The very same children that they try to indoctrinate at very young ages into the woke mindset, are the same children that they force trans and gender ideology on. The same children they groom and irreparably damage. The same children they expose to drag queens and queer pride parades full of barely dressed men wearing dog muzzles in bondage. And then they wonder why those same children are waking up and pivoting so hard to the right, assuming they aren't already too far gone, at least. They wonder why the children that resisted the brainwashing hate them with every fiber of their being, to the extent of embracing their hateful rhetoric, being called a Nazi and a phobe this, they get that. Meanwhile, the literacy rates in our schools have dropped abysmally low, So many students can barely read. Yes, that's not entirely the fault of the left. Still, we can't help but think how much funding that could have gone towards paying teachers was instead funneled towards the woke agenda and the DEI initiatives. Also, banana rice is just too funny not to include. I mean, let's be real. This is right on the nose of interpretation. I think Gaming Syndicate's reaction, he also understood it very instantly. Good reaction video, by the way. Needs more views. The suicidal empathy of the left. Rushing out in a frenzy to impede ICE from deporting criminals in our country. Acting completely deranged to the point of getting themselves killed for the scum of our cities. Very literal with this one. It's literally a signal flare. Virtue signaling on social media. Telling your echo chambers about how much you care about insert popular opinion in current year, just to make yourself look good and wonderful and deserving of all the internet brownie points. Everyone even showed up to all stand up and clap. And then they get called out on their bullshit. The moment there's any sign of backlash and the fire gets too hot to handle, they lock the replies, protect their accounts, bury their heads in the sand only to come back in a few days and repeat the cycle. Of course, we have our bro Rev here to point and laugh at their idiocy. Of course, I couldn't have a video about Democrat asshattery without mentioning the quality Learing Center and the Somali fraud in Minnesota. Probably one of the earliest and the worst quality scenes that was generated for this video. But compared to some of the other attempts for this particular scene, it was actually the best, which says a lot. It's kind of hard to tell because of the quality of it, but they are trying to scoop up burning money from the ground. Of course, everyone knows Leaflit. I don't think there was really any deep reason for her being cameoed. I kind of just planned to do it from the very start. She's also the first character that I used to test prompting in Grok Imagine and how it functioned before I even wrote the lyrics or anything else for this song. It was kind of, pretty blatant character to choose to use. She appears in like literally every Skyebrows video. Followed by Kirsche and SmugAlana in her ice form. Yeah, I know Alana isn't always very politically charged with her videos compared to some of the other cameos, like Kirsche or Leaflit, but something tells me she's pretty base, and I can think of some other reasons to like her anyways, even if not. Okay, I lied. The Nox are here. And things are bad. There are 4 heads of the Nox, like the 4 horsemen, but not specifically. This is Innayamizaen. Have fun saying that. I partly included this because the military uniforms are a vague nod to the Zentreya drama from a while ago, and how the left want us all to be Nazis so badly that they see any military uniform as the windmill. Do your research, people. But it's not Zentreya. This second scene with the energy blast, it's actually like an extremely obscure inside joke thing. It would probably take too much kind of context missing to explain, and it's It's not super important to the video, so I wouldn't worry about it. I know there's going to be some people that are going to be hyper fixated and curious, and just because I mentioned it, I'll give you a vague hint. It is related to VR chat. Because I used to play VR chat. Not anymore. Yeah, everyone got this. I guess fun fact to mention about this, as well as the school teacher segment earlier, I actually had to intentionally tell Grok to depict them like way uglier because it kept making them cute and kind of hot. I was just like, no, Grok, no, stop it. A story in two parts. This was actually included really late into the video. I was kind of struggling to come up with what I wanted to use as a visual depiction and for the particular lyric of Rule for me, but not for thee. So the Billie Eilish thing was a fitting choice, which was kind of coincidental since it happened so close to the point in time of me working on this. The next best choice probably would have been the controversy, like duality of the Charlie Kirk thing, but I think that would have been a little harder to depict visually. If you still don't know this reference, by the way, perhaps you're watching this video like late into the future, or the proverbial boulder is very comfy to live underneath. I don't know. This is the Billie Eilish speech at the Grammys where she, of course, decided to talk negatively about ICE, but also chucked in that no one illegal is on stolen land, which, well, she ends up very quickly finding out that's not a great idea. As was eloquently pointed out in my comments section, this is the brainwashed sheep, the communist puppets and the dolls. There is a little bit more to kind of describe of what I was thinking doing this visual. I will expand on it in the accompanying scene, since that is connected, which is a little later. I think it was Penny's reaction, Penny Bloomfield, that suggested this might be the Epstein files. Honestly, it might fit this scene if they were black shreds, but not really what I was going for with this. I'm a big military and gun nerd. So the first thing that popped in my head was radar countermeasure chaff. Nice cloud of strips of aluminum or whatever to confuse the hell out of radar-based homing missiles. It's kind of a perfect parallel to the smokescreen tactics that people love to use when they want to distract your attention away from obvious things going on. The scene is straightforward. It's a generic suit as a stand-in for corporations bending the knee to the hate mob. There are way too many examples to even consider for a specific reference, so I just kind of went with a generic. Pro tip, if you're a corporation and somehow you're watching this video or hearing my voice, stop doing this. Oh, hey Penny, how's it going? Speaking of Penny, stop doing this. Stop apologizing to these people. Capitulating will always result in them just demanding more and more until they've picked your bones clean, and then they'll just move on to the next target. Please, for the love of God, stop apologizing. Don't bend the knee. If you really, really want a great example that's very topical currently, Advanced GG. Phase Connect. Stop. Imagine I am holding a rolled up newspaper and smacking them on the head. Whack. Stop it. The book burning scene actually was not about book burning or censorship. This encapsulates the lyrics that they are in the song. The lyrics sung during the scene. Lefties refer to people they hate as every evil thing under the sun that they can think of. Racist, Nazi, something phobe, something file, you know, all of those. It never ends. They keep calling us these things over and over without any proof or factual basis, to such an extent that these words just stop meaning anything. They quite literally burn their own vocabulary to ash and nothingness. Oh, also, if you want even more evidence of the AI being silly and being difficult to work with, you know, names to call bigots, or a big book of buzzwords, buzzes, and the others are just completely indecipherable. Oh, before I move to the next scene, I did want to mention Penny. You were talking in your reaction about the Rev Cameo of the screen, the computer not being readable. Speaking of AI garbly text, it actually does say something. Although it wasn't intended on my end, like I didn't put it in the prompt to say something specifically, it actually kind of inferred it from my prompt. I don't remember actually what the wording even was, but it basically just said like the message of like this post has been locked or something like that. But yeah, because he's just supposed to be laughing at a reply or a post on Twitter that they locked the replies of, because they always do that, as I mentioned when I was covering that particular scene. Okay, this is another obscure reference. It's actually not even entirely accurate, because it should be 5.5 minute haul. That just doesn't really fit the cadence of the song well, so I had to cut it to 5 minutes of haul, but close enough. But yes, the full reference should be 5.5 minute haul. If anyone actually did catch this reference, you get mega bonus points. These two lines, the maze and the hall, are a nod to House of Leaves. Not because it's directly related to the video subject, but because it's such a damn good book and you should read it immediately. Despite this, I tried to cheekily hook it in anyways. So you tell me if it works at all or not. Ah yes, Vivian James. Just like how SJWs refuse to let you forget about Gamergate, refuse to let anyone forget about her. I won't get into too much detail for the sake of time, but she is the result of 4chan's V and pull boards, great minds coming together to simultaneously come up with a character for a game jam and shit on the feminist SJWs. Personally, Gamergate is probably the starting point for me when I became kind of radicalized against the leftists. I would imagine a lot of people probably did if they were around for Gamergate. Never forgive, never forget. This is a Scenic Vista. It's very beautiful, and you should visit it sometime. This is also the last line in the bridge of the song, which is also not an accident. This character's name is Himiko. He is a lower ranked Aetherius, doesn't have much backstory or information developed yet. She was pretty much kind of used as a filler scene for the most part, kind of like how Skybrows uses the cat girls, just when there's not something specific that you need to, reference, but you need something in the video. This is another one of the Nox. She prefers being referred to as Menohi, as she hates her full name. I really love Grok's generations of her, how they came out. Probably some of my favorite clips for the entire project. And I imagine most of the people that watched probably felt the same. I know Skybrows used this bit as the thumbnail for the Shoutout post. There was some confusion with this one. Honestly, I wish Grok would have cooperated with me a little better with the generation process, because there were certain symbol that it really refused to depict correctly for this character. I'm also going to use a pronoun that may be a little confusing for a very specific reason. He, supposed to be Bridget from Guilty Gear. It was another great example of how the woke ideology twisted and warped all that we see, just like the lyric. If you aren't aware, he was one of the most iconic trap characters, well, back in the day. His entire backstory is being born with a twin brother and a village that has an immense superstition surrounding male twin births bringing about misfortune. His parents, not wanting to lose their child, forced him to dress and act like a girl. He leaves the village to drop the act more manly, to be recognized as a man even, to bring back wealth to the village and attempt to prove the superstition wrong. Then a bunch of trans activists came along and demanded the game developers retcon the entire backstory because Bridget was actually a trans icon this whole time. Of course, the devs, in the face of the hate mob, bent the knee. Of course they did. Well, there's something iconic about a character forced to be a girl against their will, being a face of trans representation, though. Something iconic. Ironic, not iconic. Brain, please. Yep. Billy is back in episode 2 of 2, and oops. Turns out that her multi-million-dollar mansion was also on that stolen land she was so passionate about. The Native Americans that supposedly used to own that land would love to have it back. And from what I last heard, there was a law firm that are actually trying to help that particular Native American tribe get her evicted out of her multi-million-dollar mansion. So it'll be amusing to see if anything happens with that, but, I mean, let's be realistic here, probably not, I imagine. It would be funny. It would be very funny. Continuing what I was talking about before with the puppets and the dolls, the rust part. This is the companion scene to that, following with the progression of the lyrics. While they are convincingly human at first glance, they aren't fooling anyone with their behavior and social interaction. The skinwalker is revealed as extremely emotional and unstable, getting offended and triggered by every little thing, appealing to your emotions instead of approaching anything with facts and logic. Unfortunately, they are just puppets. Their own tears will rust away their bodies, and there will be nothing but dust left in the end. And she who must grin now returns in full, the mask removed. Her real name is Iris. Without unraveling all the mystery, she is known as the Dea of Trolling, although the German word of Schadenfreude was probably more apt. She is exactly the type of individual that would hijack a TV broadcast to make this kind of message. As I mentioned before, she is the leader of the Rictus cult, full of like-minded people who all wear a replica of the mask she wears. I imagine she'll make future occasional appearances in videos, assuming it would be suitable and fitting for her to do so. Of course, I couldn't make a Skybrows inspired video without the man himself in all of his monochromatic glory. Cat girls always included. Rin makes her second and final appearance as the sun begins rising over the utopian city from earlier. A reminder of farewell and nothing more. As the video nears an end point, we revisit the dark woods as the sun rises here as well. Or do we? Can you really call it revisiting if one has never left? The red text at the end is not a reference to anything, but an inversion. An inversion of what, you may ask? We now come to the final layer. Throughout the entirety of this video, outside of anything related to OC story canon stuff, there was a particular reference being made. A dark and foggy forest, the repeated concept of being lost and isolated, the silencing. The great silencing, if you will. If you haven't picked up what I'm putting down yet, this entire video project was themed around the Great Silence, also known as the Fermi Paradox, and even more specifically, the Dark Forest Hypothesis. Humanity's continuous desire to encounter alien life, and always met with nothing despite all the likelihoods. The Dark Forest Hypothesis approaches this with an answer that humans wouldn't find favorable. That the reason nothing has visited Earth is because anything highly advanced and sentient is quietly hiding, whether from even more advanced hostile civilizations or otherwise. But what does that have anything to do with the video? The entire time, we have never left the Dark Forest, and we were always there, beyond the scope of this message. We live in it right now, in our reality. Our communities, the political space, the atmosphere of our society. Our high-trust societies have slowly degraded, eroded by ne'er-do-wellers. It's difficult to know who is a friend. There are still many monsters lurking in the darkness and fog just out of sight. We feel isolated and try to find others to connect with, but ultimately fear stepping out from safety. That sounds rather familiar, doesn't it? Should be. Especially to anyone that has seen Skyebrows' Cream of the Slop, with its lyrical mentions of tribes and tiny campfire lights. Campfires, like the one behind Kirsche and SmugAlana, like the one at the very end, still smoking and faintly lit by embers. Projects like these, streamers, VTubers, content creators, bringing us together like beacons of light. Their voices echo amongst the trees, and we listen for them. That is the only way we can stand strong against those that wish to destroy us. Those that wish to label us terms which strip away our very humanity, to justify our removal, justify our silencing. They will try to silence us, but we won't let them. The inversion is that we aren't afraid. There's no reason to hide in the forest in fear of destruction. We know the way out. We know where to find each other. The sun will rise again, one campfire lit tribe at a time. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Groves all desecrated, be brave my friends, you have our trust, cause they will fail to silence us, they twist and warp